The transition wasn't a portal. It wasn't a beam of light. It was a blink. One moment, John Gilman was hovering above the ruins of Vought Tower, listening to the frantic heartbeats of a dying corporation, and the next, the world simply shifted. The frequency changed, the air pressure dropped, the smell of ozone and burning circuitry that had clung to his cape for the last 3 years vanished, replaced by a crisp, biting wind that tasted of salt water and clean, high-octane aviation fuel. Homelander opened his eyes. He was still hovering. He was still 3,000 feet in the air, but the city below him was wrong. It was New York. He recognized the grid, the Hudson, the park, but it was a New York that had been scrubbed clean. The Vought billboards were gone. The sprawling, neon-drenched advertisements for Dawn of the Seven that usually choked Times Square were missing. Instead, the skyline was dominated by something else, something arrogant. Directly in front of him, piercing the clouds, stood a tower that shouldn't exist. It was sleek, curved, and branded with a massive, stylized A that glowed with a soft, pulsing blue light. Homelander drifted closer, his boots crunching on the invisible currents of the air. He felt a prickle of irritation. Not fear, he didn't feel fear, but the annoyance of a man who comes home to find someone else redecorating his living room. Who put this here? Where was Vought? And more importantly, why wasn't anyone filming him? He extended his senses. His hearing, capable of picking up a whisper in a hurricane, swept over the city. He expected to hear the usual cacophony, the name Homelander on 1,000 lips, the fear, the adoration, the prayers, but he heard none of it. He heard chatter about Stark Industries. He heard arguments about the Accords. He heard whispers about a Spider-Man in Queens. He was a ghost in his own kingdom. A sudden, high-pitched whine cut through his thoughts, a projectile, fast, supersonic. Homelander didn't flinch. He simply tilted his head. An armored suit, red and gold, hot rod flashy, streaked past him, banking hard to hover 50 yards away. It wasn't a soup. He could hear the whir of servos, the hum of a reactor. It was a toy, a man in a can. Unidentified bogey, a voice projected from the suit, amplified and metallic. You're in restricted airspace. Tower sensors didn't pick up a transponder. You want to tell me why you're floating in my backyard, or should I let the house security system introduce itself? Homelander smiled. It was the smile he used for talk show hosts who asked difficult questions. It didn't reach his eyes. I'm the Homelander. He projected his voice so it rolled over the wind like thunder. And I think you're in my airspace. The faceplate of the iron suit snapped up. Inside was a man with a neatly trimmed goatee and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in a week. Tony Stark. Homelander didn't know the name, but he recognized the type, the arrogance, the money. It smelled like Stan Edgar. Homelander, Stark repeated, the name tasting strange in his mouth. Right. Listen, buddy. I don't know if you're a leftover Chitauri experiment or just a guy from Jersey with a really high-budget cosplay, but the cape is a bit much. We did the cape thing. It's played out. Homelander's jaw tightened. A micro-expression of pure rage rippled across his face, there and gone in a millisecond. He floated forward, closing the distance. I'm not a cosplayer, Homelander said, his voice dropping to that terrifyingly calm register. I'm the solution. Now land this toy and show me who's in charge. Stark hesitated. Inside the helmet, the HUD was flashing red warnings, biological readings off the charts, density inconsistent with human tissue, energy output detected in the ocular region. Jarvis, muttered Stark, keep the Legion on standby. I don't like the look of this guy. Agreed, sir, the AI replied. His heart rate is unsettlingly slow. I'll take you to the boss, Stark said out loud, masking the tension with his trademark snark. But if you break anything, you bought it, and trust me, you can't afford the rent. Stark turned and banked toward the landing pad of Avengers Tower. Homelander followed, his cape flowing perfectly behind him. He looked down at the streets again. People were stopping. They were pointing. He saw the phones coming out. There it is, he thought, a rush of dopamine hitting his brain. The eyes. He landed on the platform with a heavy, deliberate thud, cracking the high-tech alloy beneath his heel. He did it on purpose, a signature. Stark landed gracefully, stepping out of the suit as it folded away into the platform. A door hissed open, and 3 figures walked out. This was the moment the narrative shifted. This was the moment the uncanny valley began to open. First was a woman in black tactical gear, her hair red, her walk completely silent. Natasha Romanoff. She didn't look at Homelander's face. She looked at his hands, his center of gravity, the way he held himself. She was assessing a threat. Second was a man with a bow, looking tired and grumpy, Clint Barton. And third was the soldier. Steve Rogers walked out into the sunlight. He wasn't wearing armor. He wasn't flying. He wore a simple blue uniform with a star on the chest. He carried a shield that absorbed the light. Homelander looked at Captain America, and for the first time since he arrived, he felt a flicker of confusion. The man looked wholesome. He looked like the marketing materials Vought put out in the 40s. He looked like a lie. "Tony," Steve said calmly, authoritatively. "Who's this?" "Says his name is Homelander," Tony said, walking over to a console and pulling up holographic screens. "Says he's the solution, though he hasn't specified to what problem." Homelander stepped forward, puffing out his chest. The American flag on his cape caught the wind. "I'm a hero," he announced. "I'm here to serve. I heard you people have problems. Aliens, robots. I handle that. I'm the best there is." He extended a gloved hand toward Steve Rogers. "Captain, big fan of the motif. A little retro, but it works for the boomers." Steve looked at the hand. He didn't move immediately. The super serum was more than just muscle. It was instinct. It was the ability to sense intent. When Steve looked at Homelander, his internal alarm bells didn't just ring, they screamed. He looked at Homelander's face. It was perfect. Too perfect. The skin was flawless, without a single pore or blemish visible even in the harsh sunlight. The hair was coiffed into a sculpture that the wind somehow didn't disturb. But it was the eyes that froze Steve. They were blue, but they were dead. There was no light behind them, just a vast, bottomless need. Steve took the hand. It was like gripping a statue. The skin was cold, hard. "Steve Rogers," Cap said. He squeezed, testing the grip. Homelander smiled, and he squeezed back. It wasn't a handshake, it was a power struggle. Steve's biceps tensed, the super serum-enhanced muscles locking up. He was strong enough to hold back a helicopter, strong enough to punch through a submarine glass. But Homelander's hand didn't even yield a millimeter. It felt like Steve was trying to crush a diamond. Homelander leaned in, invading Steve's personal space. "Strong grip," he whispered. "Take your vitamins?" "I eat my vegetables," Steve replied, not breaking eye contact. He released the hand, stepping back to create tactical distance. "We don't get many walk-ins, son. Usually S.H.I.E.L.D. vets the new recruits." "Recruit?" Homelander laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound. "I think you're confused, Grandpa. I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking for peers. I was told this is where the power is." "Power isn't the point," Natasha said softly, moving to flank him. "Responsibility is." Homelander's eyes snapped to her. He scanned her in an instant. No powers, just a human with a gun and a heartbeat that was annoyingly steady. Useless, he categorized. "Right, responsibility." Homelander nodded, looking back at the city. "I love responsibility. I save people. That's what I do. I save them from themselves." "And where are you from?" Tony asked, the holographic screens reflecting in his glasses. "Because Jarvis is running your facial recognition through every database from the CIA to S.H.I.E.L.D. to the DMV, and you don't exist. You're a ghost, John Doe." "I'm from around," Homelander said vaguely. He realized he had to play this carefully. If they didn't know Vought, he couldn't call Vought.
I was raised in a lab, raised to be the protector of this great nation. I'm pure American ingenuity." "A lab," Steve repeated. The word carried weight for him, bad weight. "Like you," Homelander pointed a finger at Steve's chest. "We're the same, aren't we? Soldiers, icons, wrapped in the flag to make the people feel safe." "I wear the flag because I believe in it," Steve said, his voice dropping. "You wear it like a costume." Homelander's smile twitched, the first crack. "I am the flag," Homelander hissed. The air around him seemed to heat up. The temperature on the landing pad spiked by 10 degrees in a second.
"Whoa, easy," Tony stepped between them, hands raised, repulsors humming low. "Let's not measure inseams on the first date. If you want to help, Homelander, we can always use a hand, but we have rules, we have oversight, via cords." "I don't sign papers," Homelander interrupted. "I catch bad guys." Suddenly, an alarm blared across the tower. "Priority alert," Jarvis announced. "Seismic activity detected in Midtown. It appears to be the wrecking crew. They're attempting to breach the Federal Reserve Vault." Steve snapped into soldier mode instantly. The suspicion was shoved down, replaced by duty. "Suit up. Tony, get air support. Nat, Clint, ground perimeter. Homelander." Steve paused. He looked at the flying man. He didn't trust him, but he needed to see what he could do. He needed to see if the monster matched the mask. "You're with me. Keep collateral damage to 0. We contain, we don't execute. Do you understand?" Homelander floated up, his feet leaving the ground. He looked down at Steve with a look of patronizing amusement. "I'll save the day, Captain. I always do." The flight to Midtown was a blur. While the Quinjet navigated the intricate web of city streets, Homelander simply tore through the sky. He broke the sound barrier over 5th Avenue, shattering windows for 10 blocks. Inside the Quinjet, Steve watched the monitor, wincing as reports of property damage started flooding in. "He's fast," Natasha said, piloting the jet. "He's faster than Tony." "He's reckless," Steve muttered. "He just blew out the windows of the Empire State Building just to show off. He's not doing it for speed, he's doing it for noise." "He wants us to look at him," Natasha noted. "He's a narcissist." "He's dangerous," Steve corrected. "Keep a channel open to Thor. If this goes south, we're gonna need the heavy hitter." They arrived at the Federal Reserve. The wrecking crew, 4 men wielding Asgardian-enhanced construction tools, had torn the front of the bank open. Police cars were overturned. Debris was everywhere. The wrecker was swinging his enchanted crowbar, smashing a SWAT tank like it was made of cardboard. "All right, team," Steve ordered over the comms. "Containment pattern Delta. Tony, disarm the wrecker. Clint, disable the pile driver. Homelander, you take Thunderball. He's the one with the wrecking ball. Get him away from the civilians." Homelander hovered over the chaos. He heard the order, "Get him away." Boring, he thought. He looked at the crowd gathering behind the police barricades. They were terrified. They were screaming. They needed a show. Homelander didn't swoop down to grab Thunderball. He didn't engage in hand-to-hand combat. He simply lowered his chin. 2 beams of concentrated red solar energy erupted from his eyes. The sound was a horrific, tearing thrum. The laser beam sliced through the air, cutting through a streetlight, a police barricade, and then struck Thunderball directly in the chest. There was no fight. There was no struggle. Thunderball, a villain who had gone toe-to-toe with Thor, didn't even have time to raise his weapon. The lasers burned a hole straight through his enchanted armor and out the other side. The villain dropped to his knees, gasping, smoke pouring from the cauterized wound in his chest before falling face forward onto the pavement, dead. Silence descended on the street. The wrecker stopped swinging his crowbar. Pile driver froze. Even the police lowered their weapons. Homelander landed softly next to the smoking corpse. He stood up straight, adjusted his gloves, and looked at the crowd. He flashed the smile. "Target neutralized," he shouted, throwing his hands up in a victory pose. He waited for the applause, but there was no applause. The crowd was staring in horror. A child in the front row began to cry. He killed him," a police officer stammered. "He just executed him." Tony Stark landed with a heavy clang next to Homelander. The faceplate was up,
and Tony looked furious. What the hell was that? We had him contained. We don't kill unless it's the absolute last resort. Homelander looked at Tony, genuinely confused. The dopamine hit hadn't come. Why weren't they cheering? He killed the bad guy. That's the script. He was a threat, Homelander said, his voice hardening. I stopped him. You're welcome. This isn't the Wild West, Steve Rogers sprinted over, shield on his arm. He looked at the body, then at Homelander. That was murder. He hadn't fired a shot at you. He was a criminal holding a magical weapon, Homelander snapped, the mask slipping further. I saved the taxpayers the cost of a trial. Why is everyone being such a about this? The word hung in the air. It was jarring coming from a man wearing the flag. It was ugly. Stand down, Steve ordered, his hand moving to the magnetic release of his shield. Homelander, you are ordered to stand down and submit to custody pending an investigation. Homelander blinked. He looked at Steve, then at Tony, then at the Black Widow who had her widow's bites charged and aimed at his head. They were threatening him. A low, guttural laugh bubbled up in Homelander's throat. Custody? He asked. The red glow in his eyes began to simmer, faint at first, then brightening. You think you can arrest me? I'm not some drug dealer you can cuff, Captain. I'm the only thing that matters. He lifted a few inches off the ground. The asphalt beneath him began to crack from the telekinetic pressure of his flight. I tried to be nice, Homelander said, his voice sounding like grinding stones. I tried to play by your little rules, but you people, you're ungrateful, just like the rest of them. Tony, Steve said quietly, prepare the Hulkbuster. Way ahead of you, Cap, Tony whispered. But before the violence could erupt, a camera crew from WHIN News broke through the police line. A reporter shoved a microphone toward them. Homelander, who are you? Did you just save the bank? Are you a new Avenger? The camera light clicked on, the red tally light. Homelander saw it, the red light, the audience, the millions of people watching at home. The rage vanished instantly. The red glow in his eyes faded. The sneer was replaced by a look of humble nobility. It was terrifying how fast the switch flipped. It was a glitch in the software of a human being. Homelander turned to the camera, ignoring Steve and Tony completely. He placed his hand over his heart. Citizens of New York, I am the Homelander, and I am here to ensure that no one ever hurts you again, even if I have to make the hard choices that others won't. He looked back at Steve Rogers, and for the briefest moment, he winked. Your move, old man. Back at the tower, the atmosphere was funereal. Thunderball's body had been taken by damage control. The media was in a frenzy. Half the internet was calling Homelander a murderer. The other half was calling him a hero who finally did what needed to be done. #Homelander was right was trending on Twitter. Steve Rogers sat at the conference table, staring at the footage of the execution on loop. He played us, Natasha said, leaning against the wall. He saw the camera and he knew exactly what to do. He weaponized the press. He's a sociopath, Bruce Banner said, looking at the biological data Tony had managed to scrape from the scene. Look at this. His cortisol levels, stress hormones, didn't even spike when he killed the guy. His heart rate actually dropped. He enjoyed it. He's not just a sociopath, Tony said, rubbing his temples. He's a product. I ran his suit fabric. It's not alien. It's a proprietary polymer blend. And the V-shaped design? It's branding. Someone made him. But who? Steve asked. And where are they? I don't know, Tony said, but I found something else. When he was grandstanding for the cameras, Jarvis managed to get a deep scan of his cellular structure. Tony threw an image on the main screen. It looked like a chaotic mess of blue and red cells. It's compound V, or something like it. It's a chemical rushing through his veins. He wasn't born this way. He was injected. He's a science experiment. Steve looked at the screen. A super soldier. A super soldier with no moral compass, Natasha corrected, and the power of a nuke. He's coming back, Jarvis interrupted. Homelander is on approach. He is bringing a camera crew with him. Steve stood up. He picked up his shield. He thinks he can buy us with popularity.
He thinks because the crowd cheered, he won. He doesn't know us very well, does he? Clint remarked, checking his quiver. No, Steve said, walking toward the elevator. But as the elevator doors closed, Steve felt a chill he couldn't shake. It wasn't just the power, it was the eyes. When Homelander looked at the crowd, he didn't see people, he saw toys. And when a child breaks a toy, they don't feel guilty, they just get a new one. The uncanny valley wasn't just about his face, it was about his soul. It was the realization that something that looked so human could be utterly void of humanity. And it was inside their house. The elevator doors to the penthouse level slid open with a soft chime, but the sound felt like a gavel striking a judge's bench. Homelander stepped out, not into a warm welcome, but into a fortress. He had brought the WHIN camera crew as a shield, a calculated move. In his world, cameras were kryptonite to accountability. You couldn't scold the Homelander when the red light was on. You had to smile and wave. He expected the Avengers to cower, to put on their PR faces, to welcome their new teammate for the evening news. He was wrong. The common area of Avengers Tower was vast, a marvel of glass and steel overlooking the city, but it was empty of the warmth he expected. Standing between him and the living quarters wasn't a PR rep, it was Steve Rogers, and he wasn't smiling.
"Cut the feed," Steve said. He didn't shout, he didn't raise his hand. He just spoke with the absolute, immovable authority of a man who had stared down armies. The cameraman, a freelancer named Gary who usually covered cat rescues, hesitated. He looked at Homelander, then at Captain America. "I said," Steve took one step forward, the vibranium shield on his arm catching the light. "Cut it! This is a private residence. You are trespassing." Homelander's smile didn't falter, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. He placed a hand on Gary's shoulder, a grip that was meant to look supportive, but was actually a vice. "It's okay, Cap," Homelander said, the nickname dripping with condescension. "They're just documenting history. The world wants to see the new dynamic, the synergy." "There is no synergy," Steve said. "Tony, kill the signal." "On it," Stark's voice came from the ceiling speakers. Instantly, the camera's tally light died. The reporter's microphone let out a high-pitched feedback whine and went silent. Every electronic device the crew had brought, phones, tablets, cameras, went black. Homelander felt a twitch in his cheek. They just turned him off. They silenced him. In his world, that was impossible. He was the signal. "Escort them out, Happy," Steve ordered. Happy Hogan appeared from the service elevator, looking unamused, and ushered the terrified news crew away. Now it was just them. Homelander stood in the center of the room, his cape settling around his boots. He looked at the Avengers. Steve Rogers stood like a sentinel. Natasha Romanoff was leaning against the bar, cleaning a Glock 26, her heartbeat so slow it was insulting. Clint Barton was perched on the back of a sofa, whittling an arrow, refusing to even look at him. And in the corner, a man in a rumpled purple shirt, Bruce Banner, was nervously tapping on a tablet. "You have a nice place," Homelander said, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Better view than Vought, less corporate." "You executed a man today," Steve said. He didn't turn to follow Homelander, he tracked him in the reflection of the glass. "I neutralized the threat," Homelander corrected, examining a Stark pad on the table. He picked it up, crushing the corner slightly with his thumb. "He was going to hurt people. I stopped him. That's the job. You people, you complicate things. You talk, you plan, you debate. Meanwhile, people die." "Due process isn't a debate," Natasha said, not looking up from her gun. "It's the difference between a soldier and a murderer." Homelander turned to her. He scanned her again, X-ray vision. He saw the scars on her organs, the metal in her wrist, the red in her ledger. "Don't lecture me on murder, little spider," Homelander whispered, his voice silky and dangerous. "I can smell the blood on you. You're a killer. I'm a savior. There's a difference." Natasha finally looked up. Her eyes were cold, dead things. "I know what I am. The question is, do you know what you are?" The tension in the room spiked. It was a physical weight, a micro-conflict.
Homelander wanted to laser her. He wanted to cut her in half just to see the surprise on her face. But he couldn't. Not yet. He needed them to love him first. Or at least he needed the public to see them accept him. He forced a laugh, a loud, booming, fake laugh. Wow, tough crowd. You guys are intense. I like it. Iron sharpens iron, right? He walked over to Bruce Banner. He needed an easy win. Someone weak. This guy looked like a science teacher who had lost his tenure. Nervous, sweaty, weak. "And what do you do, champ?" Homelander asked, leaning over Bruce, invading his space, looming. Bruce stopped tapping on his tablet. He looked up, adjusting his glasses. He didn't flinch. He looked at Homelander with a mixture of pity and scientific curiosity. "I try to stay calm," Bruce said softly. "Calm?" Homelander sneered. "That's boring. You should get angry. Let it out. Be a man." He poked Bruce in the chest, hard. It was a bully's move, a physical provocation. "Don't do that," Steve warned, stepping closer. "I'm just playing," Homelander grinned, poking Bruce again, harder this time. "Come on, Four Eyes, hit me. Let's see what you got." Bruce sighed. He took off his glasses and set them on the table. He looked into Homelander's eyes, and for a second, Homelander saw something move behind Bruce's pupils. A shadow, something green, something ancient. And for the first time since arriving in this universe, Homelander's X-ray vision failed him. He couldn't see through Bruce. The radiation coming off the man was so dense, it was like staring into a lead wall. "You really don't want to do this," Bruce whispered. The voice wasn't weak anymore. It was the warning rumble of an earthquake before the ground opens up. Homelander pulled his hand back. His survival instinct, the one that kept him alive in the labs, flickered. "Predator," it whispered. "Apex." "Whatever," Homelander scoffed, turning away to hide the split second of hesitation. "You guys are no fun." While Homelander was posturing in the lounge, Tony Stark was in the sub-basement, drowning in data. The holographic display in front of him was a chaotic storm of double helixes and chemical compounds. He had scrubbed the air from the bank vault, pulled particulate matter from Homelander's cape via a microscopic drone, and analyzed the energy signature of the heat vision. "Give it to me straight, Jarvis," Tony muttered, scrubbing his face with oil-stained hands. "Is he a mutant, inhuman, Asgardian?" "None of the above, sir. The subject is synthetic, or rather chemically induced. I have isolated a specific compound in his blood. It bears a structural resemblance to the super serum, but it is far more volatile. It's aggressive. It's rewriting his DNA constantly to sustain the power levels." "It's a drug," Tony realized. "He's juicing." "There is more, sir." Jarvis brought up a new window. "I have analyzed his psychological profile based on his micro-expressions, speech patterns, and biometric responses during the Thunderball incident. And he displays all the clinical markers of malignant narcissism coupled with a God complex and severe attachment disorder. He creates a feedback loop. He seeks validation, and when he receives it, he feels superior. When he is denied it, he feels rage. But, sir," spit it out, Jarv. "His brain scans indicate that he does not process empathy at all. When the civilian screamed, his pleasure centers lit up, not because he likes pain, but because he likes being the cause of the reaction. He views humans as props in a narrative centered entirely around himself." Tony stared at the screen. The uncanny valley, that's what it was. Homelander looked like a hero. He smiled like a hero. But inside, he was a child burning ants with a magnifying glass. "He's a ticking bomb," Tony said, "and we just let him into the living room." "Sir," Jarvis interrupted, the red alert light flashing. "Emergency call. A 4-alum fire in the Bronx, tenement building, trapped civilians." "Does he know?" Tony asked. "He has super hearing, sir. He always knows." Homelander beat them there. Of course he did. By the time the Quinjet arrived, the tenement building was an inferno. Flames licked the night sky. Firefighters were shouting. Water cannons were blasting, but the heat was too intense. Homelander was floating outside the 4th-floor window. He wasn't rushing in. He was hovering. "What is he doing?" Steve yelled, jumping from the jet before it even stabilized. "Tony, get fire suppression. Nat, Clint, crowd control." Homelander was looking at the fire.
He could hear the screams inside, a family trapped on the 4th floor, a mother, 2 kids. "Save us," a woman screamed from the window, coughing black smoke. "Ah, yeah," Homelander grunted. "Grab on." He didn't comfort them. He grabbed the woman by the back of her shirt, hoisting her like a sack of laundry. She screamed as her grip on her children slipped. "My kids! Grab my kids!" "I don't have enough hands," Homelander snapped. "I'll come back." He flew out with the woman, dropping her, literally dropping her from 5 feet up onto a firefighter's air cushion. He turned to go back, but the building groaned. The structural supports were giving way. "The roof is collapsing," Captain America shouted over the comms. "Homelander, support the east wall. I'm going in for the kids." Homelander stopped. Support the wall. That meant holding up a dirty, burning building while Steve got the glory of the rescue, while Steve carried the kids out to the cheering crowd. No. Homelander watched as the east wall began to buckle. He could hold it. He had the strength to hold it with one hand, but he didn't move. "Homelander, the wall!" Steve screamed, sprinting into the burning lobby. "It's too heavy," Homelander lied. He didn't strain. He didn't try. He just watched. "I can't get a grip." The wall collapsed. Tons of brick and flaming timber crashed down onto the 4th floor. The screams of the children were cut short. Silence. Then an explosion of blue light. From the rubble, a figure emerged. Steve Rogers, covered in ash, uniform singeing, holding a metal beam over his head with shaking arms. Underneath him, huddled in the small pocket of safety he had created with his own body, were the 2 children. Steve roared with effort, his muscles tearing, veins bulging in his neck as he held up the mountain of debris. "Tony, now!" Iron Man swooped in, blasting the debris away, shoring up the structure with expanding foam. They pulled the kids out. They were alive, coughing, crying, but alive. Steve collapsed on the pavement, gasping for air, his lungs burning. He looked up. Homelander was floating above the smoke, clean, perfect, unbothered. He descended slowly, landing next to the exhausted captain.
"Close one," Homelander said, wiping a speck of ash from his shoulder. "Good hustle, Cap. We make a good team." Steve slowly got to his feet. He didn't look like a hero in a poster. He looked like a man who had walked through hell. He wiped the soot from his face, his eyes burning with a rage that was terrifyingly quiet. He walked up to Homelander. "You let it fall," Steve rasped. "What?" Homelander blinked. "I told you I couldn't." "You didn't try." Steve cut him off. He was close now, inches away. "I saw you. You watched it buckle. You let it fall because you didn't want to get your hands dirty. Or maybe you just wanted to see if I could catch it." Homelander's expression shifted. The aw shucks persona evaporated. The jaw set, the eyes hardened. "You should be thanking me," Homelander said coldly. "I saved the mother. You saved the brats. Everyone wins. Why are you so obsessed with the details?" "Because the details are people," Steve said, "and you're not one of us." "I'm better than you," Homelander snapped, his voice rising, cracking with genuine insecurity. "I can do things you can't even dream of. I'm the upgrade, and you're treating me like a sidekick." "I'm treating you like a liability," Steve said. "Get out of here. Go back to the tower. We're done here." "Don't you order me around." Homelander's eyes glowed red. "I don't take orders from a bottle job soldier." "Hey," Tony landed, repulsors aimed at Homelander's chest. "You heard the man. Fly away, or I blast you into the next zip code." Homelander looked at Tony, then at Steve, then at the crowd of firefighters who were staring at him with suspicion. He was losing them. The crowd wasn't cheering. They were watching the argument. He had to pivot. "I was just shaken up," Homelander said, forcing a tremble into his voice. "The fire, it reminded me of... Never mind. I'll go." He launched himself into the air, creating a sonic boom that shattered the remaining windows of the burnt building, a final act of petty spite. Back at the tower, the mood was no longer tense, it was warlike. Steve was in the medical bay getting treated for second-degree burns on his back. Tony was pacing. He lied, Steve said, wincing as the gel was applied. He let that building drop. He wanted those kids to die, Tony, or he just didn't care if they did. I know, Tony said grimly. Jarvis ran the trajectory. He could have caught that wall with his pinky finger. He chose not to. He's testing us, Natasha said from the doorway. He's seeing how much he can get away with. He's pushing the boundaries like a child testing a parent. He's not a child, Bruce Banner said. He was looking at the tablet again. I found something else. The energy signature from his flight. It's increasing. He's getting stronger, or rather, he's stopping holding back. The longer he stays here, the more he realizes there's no Vought to leash him. He's realizing he's the apex predator, Steve said, pulling his shirt on, and we're the livestock. So what's the play, Cap? Clint asked. Steve walked to the window, looking out at the city. He knew Homelander was out there somewhere, hovering, watching, seething. We can't fight him in the city. He'll level it just to spite us. We need to lure him out. We need to isolate him. And then, Tony asked, then we put him down, Steve said. He's strong, Steve. Maybe stronger than Hulk. Definitely faster. I know, Steve said. He reached for his comms unit. He pressed the button. Point Break, this is Cap. We have a code black. We need the lightning. Get here, now. Night had fallen over New York, but for John Gilman, there was no rest. He hovered 4,000 feet above Times Square, the air thin and freezing against his skin. He didn't feel the cold. He only felt the burning, acidic itch of rejection. Down below, the giant screens were playing news reports of the fire. They showed Steve Captain emerging from the rubble with the children. They showed Homelander flying away. The narrative was already slipping out of his control. The internet was asking questions. Why did he leave? Why didn't he catch the wall? Ungrateful, he whispered to the stratosphere. Ungrateful mud people. He had given them perfection. He had given them the smile, and they preferred the sweaty, burnt relic with the frisbee. He needed a reset. He needed them to remember why they needed him. His super hearing trawled the city like a dragnet, filtering out the crying babies and domestic arguments, hunting for something juicy, something violent. He found it in Hell's Kitchen, a mugging gone wrong, 3 gang members, 1 victim bleeding out in an alley. Perfect. Homelander descended. He didn't bother with the sonic boom this time. He dropped like a stone, silent and lethal. He landed at the mouth of the alley, just as one of the muggers raised a pistol to finish off the witness. Hey, Homelander said. His voice wasn't the warm baritone of the hero anymore. It was flat, dead. The muggers turned. They saw the glowing red eyes in the shadows. It's him, one whispered, terrified. Homelander stepped into the light. He didn't strike a pose. He didn't offer a catchphrase. He just looked at them with the profound, bored disgust of a man stepping on a cockroach. You're ruining my night. He didn't use the lasers. That was too quick. He wanted to feel something break. He moved with blurring speed, grabbing the lead mugger by the throat. He squeezed just enough to feel the cartilage pop, lifting the man one-handed off the ground. Please, the man choked out. I surrender. Surrender? You don't get to surrender to God. He threw the man, not at a wall, but through it. The mugger punched through the brickwork of the adjacent building like a cannonball, vanishing in a cloud of dust. The other 2 turned to run. Homelander was already in front of them. He backhanded the first one. The force of the blow snapped the man's neck instantly, sending his body cartwheeling down the alley. The last one dropped to his knees, sobbing, begging. Homelander stood over the pathetic creature, and he felt nothing. No dopamine, no rush. Why isn't it working? He thought, panic fluttering in his chest. Why don't I feel better? He lasered the last man through the top of the skull, just to stop the noise. He turned to the victim, the man bleeding out on the ground. The man looked up at his savior, his eyes wide with horror that transcended pain. He had seen everything. "It's okay," Homelander said, mechanically, the smile twitching onto his face like a glitching video. "You're safe now." The victim tried to crawl away from him. Homelander's smile froze. The rejection, again. "I said, you're safe." Beep, beep, beep. A sound cut through the air. It was coming from the dead mugger's pocket, a high-frequency distress beacon. Homelander recognized the frequency. It was an Avengers priority signal. They were calling him. He looked at the dying victim one last time, then launched himself into the sky, leaving the alley painted in blood. They wanted him. They were going to get him. The trap, the Jersey yards. The signal led him to an abandoned Stark shipping yard on the New Jersey waterfront, an abandoned yard full of rusting containers and empty warehouses. It was desolate, quiet, no cameras. Homelander landed in the center of the main yard. The ground was cracked asphalt and weeds. "Hello?" Homelander shouted, his voice echoing off the metal containers. Floodlights snapped from 4 directions, bathing him in harsh, blinding white light. Homelander didn't flinch. He just shaded his eyes, squinting into the glare. "Subtle," Homelander drawled. Steve Rogers stepped out from behind a shipping container. He was wearing his full tactical gear, the burns on his neck bandaged. His shield was on his arm. "We need to talk, John," Steve said. He used the name Jarvis had dug up from a buried Vought file, the real name. Homelander bristled. "It's Homelander." "No," Tony said. "Homelander is a product, a focus group creation. You're just a lab rat with a god complex." Homelander looked around. Natasha and Clint were on the roofs of the containers, weapons trained on him. "An ambush," Homelander laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was a jagged, brittle sound. "You brought the whole circus to take down the lion. I'm flattered." "This isn't a fight you can win," Natasha said, her voice amplified over speakers. "We know what you are. We know about the Compound V. We know you're unstable." "Unstable?" Homelander's voice dropped to a whisper that carried across the entire yard. "I'm the only thing holding this pathetic planet together." He began to walk toward Steve. "I tried to be nice," Homelander said, his hands balling into fists, the leather gloves groaning. "But you people, you're just like Stan Edgar. You think you can manage me. You think you can snap a leash on me."
"We don't want to leash you," Steve said, holding his ground. "We want to stop you before you kill more innocent people." Homelander stopped 5 feet from Captain America. The mask was gone completely now. The face wasn't handsome anymore. It was a contorted mask of pure, infantile rage. "I don't kill people," Homelander spat. "I kill obstacles. And right now, Captain, you're standing in my light." "Stand down," Steve ordered, raising the shield. Homelander smiled, a truly horrifying look. "No." His eyes lit up. The twin beams of concentrated solar energy erupted. He didn't aim for Steve's head. He aimed for the shield. He wanted to break the icon. The laser blast slammed into the vibranium shield with the sound of a cracking thunderbolt. The energy didn't deflect. It was absorbed, the vibranium humming violently as it took the full brunt of heat that could slice through an aircraft carrier. Steve grunted, sliding backward on the asphalt, his boots digging trenches in the ground. The heat was intense, singing his uniform, but the shield held. Homelander's eyes widened slightly. It didn't break. "Tony, now!" Steve yelled over the roar of the energy discharge. A barrage of micro-missiles rained down from the sky, fired by the orbiting Hulkbuster delivery system. They slammed into Homelander, exploding in a massive chain reaction of concussive force. Smoke billowed. "Did we get him?" Clint asked over the comms. The smoke cleared. Homelander was standing at a crater, his cape slightly singed,
His hair mussed. He looked annoyed. "That tickled," he snarled. He launched himself into the air, bypassing Steve, heading straight for the weakest link on the ground, Iron Man. He slammed into Tony at Mach 2. The impact was devastating. Tony's suit held, but he was ragdolled backward through 3 shipping containers, metal shrieking as it tore. Homelander landed on top of the downed Iron Man, straddling his chest, ripping at the faceplate with bare hands that could tear steel like wet paper. "Smart man in a metal suit," he sneered, peeling back the helmet's armor plating. "Take away the suit, and what are you?" Tony stared up at him, blood trickling from his nose. "A guy who bought enough time." Homelander paused. Time for what? The air pressure changed. It wasn't subtle this time. It wasn't a shift in wind. It was a localized atmospheric collapse. The clouds above the Jersey shipyard began to swirl, thick and heavy, blackening the sky in seconds. Lightning didn't just flash, it arced across the clouds like a living web. Thunder rolled, real thunder, deep, resonant, primal. It shook Homelander's bones in a way his own sonic booms never did. He looked up from Tony, his reptilian brain registering a threat it didn't understand. A beam of multicolored light, something out of a fairy tale, something impossible, slammed into the asphalt 50 yards away. The ground erupted. When the light faded, a man was kneeling in the crater. He stood up slowly. He was bigger than Steve, broader. He wore armor that looked like it was forged in a star, and a red cape that flowed with a weight Homelander's polyester blend could never mimic. In his hand, he held a hammer made of gray, unimpressive metal. Thor Odinson looked at the carnage. He looked at Captain America getting to his feet. He looked at Homelander pinning Stark. The God of Thunder's expression was grim. "Steve," Thor's voice boomed, not projected, just naturally massive. "You said you had a pest problem." Homelander stood up slowly, stepping off Tony. He glared at the newcomer, another costumed clown, another obstacle. "Who are you supposed to be? The Viking stripper? Get in line, Fabio. I'm dealing with the Tin Man." Thor tilted his head. He had faced frost giants, dark elves, and his own sister, the goddess of death. He knew what power looked like, and when he looked at Homelander, he didn't see power. He saw a tantrum wrapped in a flag. "You speak loudly for a mortal dripping in borrowed sorcery," Thor said calmly. "Mortal?" Homelander's eyes glowed red again. "I am the only god in the sky." He fired, the full force of his heat vision. The beams hit Thor square in the chest, and nothing happened. Thor didn't fly backward. He didn't grunt. The divine armor absorbed the heat, glowing briefly, then dissipating it. Thor just stood there, letting Homelander pour his entire rage onto his chest, looking mildly inconvenienced. Homelander's eyes widened slightly. It didn't break. "My turn," Thor said. He raised Mjolnir. The sky opened up. A bolt of lightning, thick as a redwood tree, channeled down into the hammer. Thor threw it. Homelander tried to dodge. He was fast, but the hammer was fated. Mjolnir struck Homelander in the ribs. The sound was sickening, the crack of indestructible bones finally meeting something harder. Homelander was launched backward, not through a wall, but through the entire shipyard. He skipped off the water of the Hudson River like a stone, crashing into a derelict barge half a mile away. He lay in the wreckage of the barge, gasping for air. His chest felt caved in. He tasted copper, blood, his blood. He tried to stand up, but his legs were shaking. He looked back toward the shore. The Avengers were regrouping. Thor was swinging the hammer, preparing another volley. They weren't afraid of him. They were annoyed by him. The realization broke him faster than the hammer had. He wasn't the apex predator here. He was just another villain of the week. Homelander looked up at the sky, this strange, hostile sky that didn't belong to him. He could keep fighting, he could laser them all, but the big one with the hammer, he couldn't beat that. He knew it in his V-charged blood. With a scream of pure, impotent rage, he launched himself straight up. He broke the sound barrier, then Mach 2, Mach 3. He fled. He punched through the atmosphere, higher and higher, until the air turned black and the earth below was just a blue sphere. He floated in the silence of space, alone, the ultimate outcast, the strongest man in a world that didn't want him, now trapped in a universe that didn't need him. Down below, Steve Rogers watched the radar track vanish. "He's gone," Tumney said, spitting blood onto the pavement. "For now." "He'll be back," Natasha said, holstering her weapons. "Narcissists always come back when the wound heals." "Then we'll be ready," Steve said, looking at Thor, who was calmly wiping dust from his hammer. The world was safe again, but the air felt different now. They had seen the funhouse mirror version of a hero. They had seen what happened when power came without sacrifice. The American nightmare had visited, and they knew, with chilling certainty, that somewhere out there in the multiverse, there was a world where the bad guys had already won.